If I wear it on the show, it's a write-off, that's why. So in case the main character being named after something that sounds generically violent but is actually extremely banal didn't tip you off, Bloodshot is based on a comic book from the 1990s. And in case you're young enough to have not experienced that era directly, just to be clear, by and large, comic books from the 1990s really bad. Bad to the point where, at least conceptually, Bloodshot is probably on the higher end of the curve, and more recently, the Deadpool movies have rather decisively borne out that the only reliable formula for squeezing anything worthwhile out of that miasma is to spend money, but not like too much money, and do them as self-satirical comedies where an awareness of how dumb everything is turns it into kind of an advantage. The new Bloodshot movie, starring Vin Diesel, however, attempts to put some extra nuance on that formula by asking, what if we do exactly what Deadpool did, but without the funny parts and the meta-humor that made Deadpool, you know, actually good, and winds up with, predictably, a disposable B-movie that's not, like, terrible, but would probably have been better if it were either shorter or more aggressively bad. Taken as is, Bloodshot is disposable junk food cinema that wouldn't even typically require a review, really, save that now I guess this might be the actual last movie released for a while. So, based loosely on a Valiant Comics hero, charitably described as the Punisher if he was also Wolverine, and narratively visually boiling down to, as a movie, a mashup of Universal Soldier and The Matrix, Bloodshot follows Diesel as a heroic American soldier whose most recent anti-terrorism mission somehow followed him home in the form of a madman who tortured him for information and murdered his wife in front of him. He wakes up from this in a high-tech science facility where he's informed that the experience actually led to his death and that he lives now because the army donated his body to Guy Pearce as an oddball tech billionaire whose company specializes in building new bionic limbs and other experimental fixes and upgrades for mortally wounded soldiers. Which, because this is a movie, also means it employs the best of said soldiers as its own team of mismatched personality superhuman mercenaries with powers that range from kick-ass robot legs guy to lady who can hold her breath a really long time. Yeah. But in Bloodshot's case, his blood has been replaced by 1 billion nanocomputers that allow him to quick heal from almost any injury, grant superhuman strength and agility, and allow him to interface with the internet and all technology using only his mind, which becomes a complication for his newfound team when he recovers just enough of his living self's memories to learn the identity of he and his wife's killers and opts to put his powers to work on a rogue revenge mission. Now, there's actually a substantial bit more to it after that, including a twist to the setup itself, which, since no one has really cared much about the Valiant characters in the last couple decades, or really ever, will probably land as an actual surprise to most audiences and legitimately works in terms of momentarily elevating Bloodshot into looking like it might transcend itself, before it doesn't and you start realizing that a lot of its most original-ish visual and story cues were done better in other recent just-for-fun B-actioners like Lucy, Hardcore Henry, and Upgrade. On the other hand, it helps that leaning hard into the traumatized soldiers angle turns out to be a smart thematic foundation and gives Diesel a lot to work with in the handful of dramatic, non-punching and shooting scenes, where if you squint, it sort of feels like he might be channeling some of the same vibes he brought to his role in Billy Lynn's Halftime Walk. If nothing else, it's the first time he's been better than his material in forever. We come to these things for the action scenes, of course, and particularly the 3 big Bloodshot versus everybody blowouts for showing off his abilities are all decently satisfying in the non-ultra memorable kind of way, doing an above-average job of fulfilling the superhero origin, "aw man, it'd be cool to be able to do that" directive, but never really distinguishing themselves in the way that something like this needs to be a bigger deal. Again, you've seen most of this before, just not all together at the same time. The cast outside of Diesel seems to be mostly going through the motions, with only Pierce displaying any real sense that he understands exactly what sort of movie he signed up to be in. And even Isa Gonzalez, who was so memorable in her brief turn in Hobbs and Shaw recently, is mostly relegated to doling out generic, jaded, tough girl dialogue with a perma-scowl that suggests it just occurred to her that the next few years of her career are going to be defined by the words "Ana de Armas said no." Overall, though, I didn't dislike it, so give this one a 6 out of 10. But please, guys, don't make me have to watch a Ninjak movie.